involved in civil disobedience for many, many years,
Yeah.
And on my own, and have often initiated things and certainly testified for others. But in my view, these are not moral questions. These are tactical. Well, they're not questions of principle. They're
Right.
questions of tactics, and it's usually questions of tactics that have moral significance, which you have to ask when you undertake civil disobedience, or for that matter, any other action, is what the consequences are.
Mm-hmm.
So, if civil disobedience has the consequence of increasing awareness and understanding and getting other people to try to do things that they might not otherwise have done and so on, if that's its likely consequence, it's justified. If the likely consequence of civil disobedience is to build up opposition and antagonism and to strengthen power centers and so on, well, then it was the wrong tactic. And these are hard questions. I don't pretend to have any great insight into them, and my own tactical judgments have often been wrong over the years, but those are the questions you have to ask. There's no general answer.
Yeah, it seems to me the only way to answer those questions is to attempt it, and it also seems to me I haven't seen too many attempts at actual civil disobedience aimed at the media itself, perhaps fear of being ignored or shut out by the same media. But it seems like a worthwhile
it's worth
strategy.
thinking about, but you don't just attempt it, you think about it.
Yeah.
For one thing, a general point about any kind of civil disobedience, at least in my opinion, is that you want to make sure that people are going to understand it the way you want them to understand it, not the way it's going to be presented by somebody else. And that means a lot of preparatory work.
Open microphones at demonstrations and rallies where participants and even opponents can address the group. Does it add to the democratic nature of the structure? Does it interfere with the efficiency, as some, I guess, communists would like to argue? What's your perspective on open microphones?
Well, in general, I'm in favor of it, but that's a general principle, and you really have to judge the cases. If having open microphones if the circumstances are such that open microphones do nothing but cause everything to collapse so that people cannot do what they want, which, remember, there's conflicting commitments. On the one hand, there's a common effort to act with solidarity and mutual support and so on to achieve some result. On the other hand, there's an interest in the value of allowing the freest individual expression, and those are not always consistent with one another. Human life is a complicated affair. We can hold various values, and they're not always consistent, and we have to make choices between them. And it's kind of like the question of civil disobedience. I don't think you can give a general answer. You have to make judgments based on the circumstances and how the values that you uphold can be maximized under given circumstances, and often with conflicts, because they're often in conflict.
Okay, well, let's say there's a general attitude within the participants itself, and there's been discussion that says at a particular moment an open mic would not be a good thing. Are there any other curbs on power that could maintain the democratic nature of the demonstration, rally, or community, while at the same time, not having an open microphone? Are there any other curbs on power? Do you know what I'm trying to ask?
Yeah, for example, if suppose there's a demonstration, and suppose some group is trying to disrupt it by violence,
right?
And suppose you stop them. Well, that's a use of power.
I'm more concerned with a curb on power on perhaps the steering committees that seem to evolve and make decisions in their own interest rather than in the interest of their constituents.
It often can be. On the other hand, sometimes power is democratically delegated on the condition of recall.
Yeah. And almost instant recall.
I don't think that there can be a general answer to this.
No.
You're quite right in pointing to the fact that steering committees and coordinators have a kind of an institutional drive to amass more power to themselves, and that you've got to watch out for.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that's not to say you should never delegate authority to do anything.
No.
If we did that, we'd be, just totally incapable of acting at all.
Right.
So you make choices and decisions.
Right.
Life doesn't have simple solutions.
No, it doesn't.